Welcome to Sounds Heavenly and to a very, very special place hidden away in Copenhagen with Torsten Valur, who has designed pretty much every B&O product that I've known, owned and loved over the years. So thank you, Torsten, for letting us come and visit your studio.
Well, Steve, I'm really happy for having you visit here and looking forward to chat together with you and share our mutual passion about products from B&O.
Thank you. So please come and join us. Let's have a look around at some rather amazing B&O products. Some you may recognise and some that I'm certain you won't. So this looks amazing. What do we have here?
Well, this is a collection of some of the earlier projects we have been doing here. The small mock-ups or parts that is actually from the B&O factory. And it's actually displayed in a piece of furniture that David Lewis did many years ago.
Yeah.
But here, for example, we have the first project I did, which was the Beocom 2.
Oh yes. Now this won a design award, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. For your first product.
It was the first product. When I got employed by David Lewis back in the middle 90s.
Yeah.
And he got this desk to me. He said, "Clear desk here. You should sit, and I want you to work on the telephone.
Yeah.
You know, a landline phone." And typically for him, he wasn't giving any direction, or there wasn't any. As a newly educated designer, I asked, is there a brief or anything to say what it should be?
Yeah.
And he used to know you had to figure out what makes sense.
Right.
And the result became that one.
Yeah.
And in some way you could say, from that time, you know, telephones were fixed and you were somewhere else and it was ringing and you had to hurry to grab it. So the whole idea about having something standing up that you could easily grab became the driver of it. And so I was like fascinated about having this kind of slightly conical tube that in the first sketch was a straight line, but then when I had to meet reality and there's this safe the requirements from to get it approved, that it had to fit a special curvature of a face. So what it did, it took it up to a face on an approval agency and say if you couldn't put it in there and put the microphone within a little space, it would fail. So you had to figure out what to do, and that's why it started to be bended and this one sticking out so it could get in with the limitation of what was allowed.
Yeah.
Here we have the mobile phones.
Oh yes, I know people who still use the Serene and the Serenata.
Oh yeah. And actually that was the first one coming out with the collaboration with Samsung. But the one we actually did first was this one. And the idea was, it was like one day when I was biking back home, I said, well, you actually need a phone that you can hold, operate in one hand while you're biking.
Oh wow.
So it's like pushing here, it would jump out, turning on the telephone book, ring, speak, like that, and then close it and down in the pocket.
Yeah.
And so that was a kind of cool idea.
Yeah.
But when we started up with Samsung and B&O, it was believed that that would be a little bit too radical. So let's start with another flip phone.
Right.
And then it became that one. And since it was a flip phone, I thought, let's start about the hinge. Let's make that like a really crafted thing. So you had a layer and you had a phone that actually could stand up on.
Yes.
It's like not just lying like that, but okay, I'm proud of it. I like it. I make it stand.
Yeah.
You open it and it was automatically.
Yeah.
And people will say, why are you doing upside down?
Yes, I always wondered about that.
But you know, everything, when you hold something, where's your thumb?
At the top.
Exactly. So that's why
that makes sense.
And that's a typical way of thinking as a B&O, saying you're not afraid of breaking the consensus as long as it has its own logic to it.
Yeah.
It also gave the idea that you could have a completely cover of your ear and a clearance of the chin, so it get this kind of rather comfortable long talk that we haven't had ever since, because after we got the smartphones, we get this kind of glass that actually like you feel kind of heated up, and that's perhaps why a lot of people start now talking to the phones like that.
Right.
Then here we have one of Davies' earlier design from
yes.
before my time.
This is one of my favourite remotes ever.
But for me, it shows this kind of fantastic magic they were doing into it. This whole idea of having something that is like flush and slim, and in some way you could say it's like today's iPhone.
Yes.
In some way.
Yeah.
But then you put it on the table and it raises up.
Yeah.
I love
That is
that.
genius.
I love that. Then we have that is a remote from the Beo.
Oh, is it the
Beosound
Beosound 8?
A8.
Yeah.
And it was a replica of the central user interface.
Yes. Yeah.
But what is it with the center when it's round? You don't have any sense of direction.
No.
So how do you put a sense of direction so you could blind operate it?
Oh.
Well, by having a triangle
yes.
on the back, you get a direction that fits into your finger, so you can have it like that, and you know what's up, down, and things like that. And it also becomes then the place for the batteries.
That makes sense.
And then when it's standing there, it's it elevated, so it's ready to be grabbed.
Yeah.
Then we have this one here, which is made after that one.
Right. Yes.
But with the goal of saying, can we revive the most successful remote B&O had, the Beo4?
Yes.
And you take a look at it and you say, what is Beo4 known for? Well, surprisingly slim.
Yes.
And surprisingly robust.
That's right.
So let's say, okay, if that one is slim, we'll make it super slim.
Yeah.
And if that one was robust, let's make it super robust.
Yeah.
So that's why the whole idea of making it like a solid piece of aluminium, where you have no split line, it's nothing. So you really, it's a bit of magic how you get batteries into it.
That's right. It needs a bit of experience, doesn't it? But,
exactly. But I like the whole idea of like sliding it out, putting in the battery, and slide it back, and it's almost like. Pew.
Yes.
So, and then there was a lot of work on how are you making this interface.
Yeah.
Both being like visually harmless, but on the same time be sure that by your fingers, without looking, you can actually find out where you are.
Yes. And we've got some incredible speakers here.
Oh yeah, this is that's the 17.
Yeah.
And I think the tricky part with that one was that there was this idea that it should be able to be placed in any direction.
Yes.
So you had it like that, left or right, like this, like you could say almost like a stage monitor. Or if you want it like that, up in the ceiling or in the corner.
Yes.
So how can you make a design that could handle all these directions? And the choice we made this one was saying, if you have like an infinitive line that separates the shell of aluminium from the filling, you had something that was like saying it's a loop. You can put it anyway.
I like that. I'd never realised that, but that makes sense now. Yes.
And then we had made the cutout here to get into, you can say, the speaker grill, and we were doing a lot of like ideas about how could we do something else than fabric.
Yes.
And one of the idea was like, there's always a plastic carrier behind the fabric, but could we change it upside down so it was in the front?
Yes.
Just to get something else. There was also some with lines, or where you even had like threads going in there, so you got a kind of pattern. That was actually highly transparent acoustically.
Yes.
So there was a lot of variation we could do there. And right here we have this, the first Beosound 2.
Oh, yes.
The little MP3 player.
I haven't seen one of these for a few years, but I know people still use these.
I think they're sounding pretty well.
Yes.
And
they're so nice to hold. There's something really special about it.
And rather solid, actually.
Yeah.
And I like this, how it's standing here on, again, it's a little bit alien. It's like something from Mars, and especially it was lighting up here in a ring when it was charging.
Oh, now this, we've got some really incredible things
This
here.
is some concepts here that made pretty many years ago, but never went into production. Again, some kind of like music center piece.
Yes.
some small speakers,
Yeah.
again some center operating things, and shells from the Beolab 11,
Yes.
the
Oh,
subwoofer. And it's again the funny thing, because for a lot it was based, typically when you're doing piano, it's based on a recipe acoustically.
Right.
And here you had like two 8-inch bass woofers shooting to each other.
Yeah.
So you could have a closed cabinet, only like a cutout line where the sound could get out. But you also had something that was completely rattle free.
That's right.
So
it's completely
ideally you
balanced,
could place your subwoofer on a glass shelf
Yeah.
and it wouldn't distort in any way,
Yeah.
ideally. So the starting point was to make like a ball that you cut into two pieces, which was
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
And it went on for quite a long time like that.
Yeah.
But there was so many problems with overheating of the hardware inside.
Right.
So actually somewhere it was like, one of the engineers saying, in some ways, like if you had just made it upside down or something like that.
Ah.
And it
yes.
was like, this works, and you're just going home and,
Yeah.
that is. Because by doing that, it
Yeah.
suddenly became much smaller.
Yes.
And it had
Yeah.
a much better stand on the floor.
Yes.
But it's one of those
Wow.
things that comes unplanned. And that's one of the first paper mock-ups from Beolab
that's
4.
Beolab 4. Yes.
And I think that was the first speaker I designed,
Yeah.
actually. And it was made like as a table speaker.
Yeah.
Thought like something that we could connect to a PC
Right.
to drive music.
Yes.
And then and I was giving a volume saying, okay, we need like 1 or 2 liters
Yeah.
for a good acoustic performance. And I was trying to see what kind of shapes do fit that. And you were trying a ball and a square and a box.
Yeah.
And they were not really like that because,
No.
but then suddenly you had this kind of triangular pyramid shape
Yeah.
that suddenly felt smaller than the rest, even though it's actually bigger on
Yes,
the
because
table.
it curves out, so
But-
it's quite.
But it feels small because you kind of judge this. You start to judge the shape from the top part of it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I got this angle that was
Yeah.
facing you when you were sitting.
Yes.
So you got the logic right. So the rest was just to figure out how much should it be curved
Right.
or not curved, and to, for example, this one you can see it's too blown up.
Yes.
So it's not really attractive.
No.
So and if it's too little blown up, then it gets too pointy.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like testing on like how much to do before you get it right.
Yes.
And this one we had like even once where we had like a 3-legged stand,
Oh.
and that became such an alien UFO
Yes.
thing that it was quite fun and I liked it, but it was maybe too much. But
Yeah.
so we can move on. Here.
Thanks. I think one thing we'll have to mention, people may have seen up on the top, that the CD player there, that is really something special.
That is an example of some of those mock-ups we did
Right.
and presented to B&O as
Yeah.
alternatives, or how about.
Yes.
And that's the way we worked quite a lot at that time,
Yeah.
where you had like a constant dialogue
Yes.
with the people up there saying, okay, we are doing that, but what about if we did something else?
Yeah.
And then we would go home, and sometimes later, maybe just like 3 weeks or a month later, we would have another variation saying, okay,
Yeah.
how about that one? And that
Yeah.
would start a dialogue up there
Yeah.
where people are saying, is it good? What does it give us? Where can we see that? How
Yeah.
can we take that further?
Right.
Is that interesting, or does it die out? And it might maybe have stood there for a couple of months, and then
Yeah.
people are feeling, okay, we'll leave that one.
Yeah.
But so that's a lot.
That really is unusual.
But we made a lot of things like that at that time. There was also one where it was like the center part was an aluminium tube, almost like the
Right.
Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
And then you had like wings on the side that came out when you
Yeah.
turned it on. So a rather sculptural thing.
Yeah.
But again, playing with these things about having all alone
Yeah.
CD player
Yes.
that contained everything. Put it there and made it play.
Yeah. Wow. So there are some incredible B&O products that we could have seen over the years that,
Oh, yeah.
that didn't make it. Yeah.
And that's a little sad thing. And I'm sad I can't
yes.
show you all of it, but
No.
part of being designer is that you have to accept that maybe less than 1/3 of the things you're doing
Yeah.
actually turns out
Yes.
alive, and you're doing a lot, even things
Yeah.
that you were really feeling really happy about, proud
Yeah.
of, just disappears
Yes.
because the timing is not right, or strategically it
Yeah.
might be not a thing to do at the time.
Yes. Yeah. And the little cubes. In fact, that looks. Was it the S3? The little Beoplay S3.
It had
The-
a little kind of same feel into it.
Yeah. And the cubes.
Yeah.
They're almost like the old Beovox 2500s.
Exactly. And you could say those Beovox that you mentioned there were actually the inspiration for the Beolab 3. Because it was like,
yes.
can we do that again, this kind
Yeah.
of balancing thing? But technically here it was based on a bass and two
Yeah.
slaves. And they had to be balanced to
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
So you couldn't do like the old Beovox thing where it's standing on the edge, because then the
Right.
slave wouldn't work.
Ah.
So it
yes.
had to be like that.
Yeah.
But to achieve the same kind of balancing feel, you change the overall cube shape
Yeah.
into a ball
Right.
that you then cut the slides in.
Yes.
So that's why that's the thinking behind the Beolab 3 and to the big subwoofer that we have.
Oh
over
yes,
there.
the Beolab 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Torsten, for letting us come and have a look around this amazing space, and for telling us some of the hidden insights that came into B&O products.
It's really been my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much for watching, and please stay tuned. We've got lots more amazing B&O videos to come soon.